So I just want to say thank you to the Manitoba canola growers for sponsoring the break that we just had. I hope you guys had a break. I know we didn't, but hopefully you enjoyed a lovely break. And so now I have the pleasure of introducing Darlene McBain. This next session is sponsored by FCC, and Darlene has graciously agreed to be our moderator, which I'd say could be a tough job because I think we all like to talk quite a bit, as evidenced in the room today. So Darlene is Director of Industry Relations at FCC. She works with various partners, associations, and stakeholders to further help grow the agriculture and food industry across Canada. Born and raised on a poultry farm outside of Quebec City, Darlene has first-hand knowledge of the hard work and dedication that goes into a successful farm operation. She's been working in the ag industry for more than 20 years and is passionate about food, business strategy, relationship building, and coaching. She's been a member of l'Ordre des Agronomes de Québec for 20 years. In addition to her professional roles, Darlene has also participated and volunteered in several community organizations and educational boards. And today, Darlene is going to moderate our panel, Meeting the Needs of Farm Women. So please put your hands together to welcome Darlene.
Thank you, Heather, for that nice introduction. So maybe before we begin, I'd like to say this has been a fantastic event. I've enjoyed the day tremendously. And I think we should all give Heather a good round of applause to her and her team that put this event on. So we've had some really inspirational speakers today. I'm looking at Elaine and the live radio, Sean, and this morning our speaker that came and talked to us about the culture and the workshops and everything. So it's been a great day, and it's not over yet. I know it's late in the day, but we have with us 3 very inspirational women leaders on stage that are going to talk to us about the needs of women in farming. So this is a topic that is very dear to my heart. As Heather mentioned, I was raised on a farm. I like to think I have a career in ag, but this is not about women that have careers in ag, but women that actually farm. And I was blessed with a beautiful sister-in-law that actually took over our farm at home because my father passed suddenly at the age of 58, and her and my brother were graduating from McGill, McDonald College. She was 3 months pregnant. My brother had to get out to work to pay for the bills when he took over the farm. And I was the 4th sibling, so I loved anything agriculture, but my brother and his wife were graduating, and they were older, so they had to take over the chicken farm. And I've actually witnessed my sister-in-law have many challenges throughout her career as a farmer. She farmed alone, raised her 2 daughters at home, and my brother worked till very recently in 2018, where he was suddenly, tragically, in a bad car accident. So I've seen my sister-in-law really struggle, and today I'm very proud to say that she's actually on the executive board at Chicken Farmers of Canada, so she's really worked her way up and shown a lot of leadership. And I'm a very proud aunt of a 25-year-old niece that's taking over the farm in a few years. So this is really dear to my heart, so I think we're going to have a great panel with women here that are going to share a lot about what's going on in farming and agriculture, and talking about those needs for those women in agriculture. So with that, I will present Heather Watson, which I guess we don't need much of a presentation. And she's going to talk about the FMC's recent groundbreaking research, which is titled Expanding Opportunities for Canadian Agriculture by Understanding the Experience of Farm Women. So, Heather, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Me again. Awesome. Yeah, so really, really pleased that we were able to put this panel together because not just because we have this recent research that we want to talk about, but there's some really great programming and really great things going on in the sector we want you to know about, but also so much opportunity to do more. So yes, I'll kick things off. I have probably too many slides, and I probably talk too fast. Geneviève, Veronique, and France, so je m'excuse. I'll give you the slides. Yeah, so we, over the last 2 years, and I don't know, yeah, Bob is in the room here. So over the last 2 years, I've been working with these amazingly talented guys, Bob Wilbur and Maurice Allen, and Maurice was with us last night at the reception, and we were working on some other stuff, and then we got on the topic of farm women, and I was pleasantly surprised to learn they were really interested in this topic and had done some previous research and said, you know, could we do something together? And I said, I think that would be amazing because I don't know a lot of data that's out there on the topic of farm women, and so let's see what's out there and see what we can find, and more importantly, try to understand what's going on, and from an experiential point of view, not just demographic or farmographic. And so Bob and Maurice are with Centric Engine, and I get to present today, but really, really happy that we had the chance to work together over the last 2 years. Why focus on farm women? So this is a quote we took from, we did an environmental scan as part of the study, and this is a quote from 1995, and I'm going to ask you, are things different today, or does this resonate today as well? Farm women face a complex array of challenges. Their position remains largely invisible, their farm work unremunerated, and indeed their status as legitimate farmers unrecognized. A history of leaving farm women's work uncounted, discounted, and undervalued inhibits attempts to collect accurate data using standard methods. I would say, I'm looking at Bob, I would say it's kind of what we found, to be honest. And it's no longer 1995. Why focus on farm women? So from experience, so we were hearing from a lot of farm women, the frustrations, and Darlene was talking about some of the challenges, very unique challenges in a lot of ways, but then not so unique among the farm women population. So we were hearing these things, and we didn't have a lot of evidence to back it up. It was a lot of anecdotal conversations. We had done some research on, I mentioned earlier, mental health, and done some research on farm management, and found that women reported higher levels of stress compared to their counterparts. And stress in particular, of course, about the top 3 stressors: unpredictability, financial pressures, workload pressures, but also transition planning and maintaining family and farm team harmony. So feeling like Elaine was up here with her arms stretched out, talking about feeling like that monkey in the middle, and certainly we see that in our research as well, but also on the farm business management side of things, women are more likely to adopt and kind of believe in the benefits of business management practices, but come up against challenges in getting their partners to agree with adopting those practices. Try to be careful with my language. And then also we saw the results. We have an annual Farm Transition Appreciation Day every January, and so last January, Ag Canada shared some results of their recent study, their farm financial survey, and in that study they have a volunteer transition planning section. So they asked about, do you have an updated will, and have you identified successors for your farm, and if so, you know, what are some of the demographics around those successors? And a whole bunch of other questions. But when it came to the question about demographics of successors, of the producers that have identified potential successors, on operations where there's only male operators, 90% were male successors. On operations where there was at least one female operator, the number of potential women operators increased to 25%, which is cool. So it shows that having the presence of a woman and women feeling supported and wanting to be on the farm and stay on the farm, or go into farming on their own, has a direct impact on gender equity and equality. So our objectives were basically to replace stereotypes and anecdotes with a foundation of facts in terms of the activities undertaken by farm women, as well as their experience, so their challenges, their motivations, their ambitions, things like that. And then, of course, we don't want to just do research for the sake of research. So what does this mean? What are some recommendations we can put forward in terms of policy, programming, education, training, further research, et cetera, et cetera? And I am a recommendations queen, so we end up with a lot of recommendations. But I think it means that, you know, there's a lot of opportunity for different players in the sector to pick up the ball and run with it. So the results were officially launched October 3rd, and the results are available on our website and Centric Engine's website as executive summary, full report. You see it here, so you know what it looks like. But it was the first study to seek to understand the experience of farm women, as I talked about their motivations, activities, etc., through first an environmental scan. This is a bit academic. Environmental scan, interviews, and then a national survey. And we had over 1,000 women complete our survey across Canada, which was just kind of goes to show you how important it was, because I think it was only out for a few weeks anyways. And then the results reveal that women are making extraordinary contributions to the success of farming in Canada, with a higher degree of involvement in basically every aspect of farming, as you'll see in a moment. But the vast majority continue to face significant challenges and significant barriers as well. And so we found 85%, which we thought was awesome. And I guess by definition, I would say we use the term farm women because we had a steering committee, which I'll talk about in a minute, but we had a steering committee and we said, you know, let's talk about women on the farm. And then it was, well, technically, not all the women are on the farm, technically, in terms of location, so that might take people out of our catchment. Okay, women in farming. Well, as you'll see, there might be some, you know, issues with definitions around, am I a farmer, am I in farming, I don't know. So farm women was the chosen language. So we talked about farm women, and we asked, you know, how involved are you on the farm? 85% were very or full-time involved in the farm, which we thought, I don't know, was higher than we expected. Bob, I keep looking to you, and I'm going to keep looking to you because I'm like, we thought that was, I don't know, higher than expected, I guess. But then here on this slide, I won't go through all the bits and pieces, but we started to look at when we talk about there's no data on the actual activities it takes to run a successful farm. We broke it out into some categories, and these aren't all the results by any means, but it's kind of like the top 5 in terms of level of involvement for each of these areas. So you see huge involvement in business management, which means huge opportunity for organizations like ours and others in the room. But things like livestock management, absolutely. Crop management, absolutely. And post-harvest and marketing. So women are involved in absolutely everything in a big way. But something's not adding up. Highly involved, 85% is huge, but only 51% consider themselves a farmer. That's interesting. How are we defining who's a farmer? How are we defining what it takes to be a farmer? And why is there this disconnect between, you know, 85% are doing all the things that it takes to run a successful farm, and half say, I don't consider myself a farmer. So interesting food for thought. And while 42% spend more than 40 hours a week on the farm, and 14% exceed 60 hours, usually on top of having off-farm jobs, 33% don't get paid for their contributions at all, and 56% are working off-farm because they're challenged for the farm to create enough income to support the family. So we've got to look at the math a little bit there. Our key conclusions from the study itself en masse, I guess I would say, is, you know, we usually expect, especially in agriculture, we lay on research, and Sean presented his research earlier, and a lot of that is demographic or farmographic. So, you know, what did the young folks say? What did the women say? What did the, you know, what did the married people say, et cetera, or level of education, et cetera. And then, you know, what did the beef farmers say? What did the dairy farmers say? And we try to kind of, you know, pinpoint that and find out, well, why is there a difference? So it's because, you know, these folks over here, we know they're kind of like this, and these guys are like this. But that didn't work for this. We kind of applied these demographic and farmographic filters, and we said there's no rhyme or reason using these filters of the results we're seeing. The difference we saw was when we started applying a human-centered lens, which was the level of communication, satisfaction with communication, and the relationships, interpersonal relationships with those on the farm and off the farm. And that presented tremendous diversity and experience. So these became kind of the dimensions of, well, Bob says, the differences that make a difference. So the 5 dimensions that really impact the experience of farm women: Communication being number one, and I have a flow chart in a second. Of course I have a flow chart. Communication, participation in farm activities, recognition and support, challenges and barriers, so the experience thereof, and then relationships. And I don't want to put these next two slides, I don't want to scare you. I feel like I'm like the doom and gloom girl, like with my presentation this morning, but it's just appreciating the reality that's out there. And so for me, so this is half of the challenges, but looking at the numbers, yellow is, it's a challenge, red is a barrier, and it's important to distinguish between those because we were kind of lumping them all together. And then the steering committee said, yeah, no, we need to separate these because, you know, challenges are things that we just get it done. We find a way. We find the detour around that obstacle. So a lot of things aren't barriers to us farm women. And then we said, okay, but what are the things that have been challenging where you have to take an extra step or you have to sidestep around something because of different treatment or because of different opportunities. And so for me, like just the sheer numbers of the farm women experiencing challenges and barriers kind of begins with a lot to do with domestic responsibilities, family responsibilities, but you see in there, you start to talk about farm transition and issues with finding a place for the next generation on the farm. So the pressure that comes from ensuring that, you know, this isn't the generation to lose the farm, and our kids are, like we just heard from Elaine, fair, equal, whatever it is a huge pressure, especially on the farm woman who ends up being, I think we talk about the CEO, the chief emotional officer, pulled in so many directions by all the generations on this farm and all their needs and wants and trying to keep everyone happy all the time because that's what we do. That's what we're programmed to do. And then you see challenges around access to capital. You see challenges around having to work off the farm to get enough income to maintain the farm, things like that. I won't go through the whole list because you've probably read it faster than I can talk, which is crazy because I talk so fast. And then I put this slide up, and again, the chair of our board is always like, Heather, like this is a little bit daunting. But I just want to show like it's still huge. Like even, I mean, I don't want it to be like, oh, slide one is way worse than slide two, but I mean, sexual harassment, domestic violence is at the bottom of the list. But I would say that doesn't take away at all the effect that that has on being able to be successful in life, be successful in your farm, being able to get out of bed in the morning. If you're facing those challenges, and you know, 13% of women are facing sexual harassment challenges and barriers, that is huge. Like think of the last time you were sick, or even, you know, COVID wasn't so far away. It's debilitating. And how can you be expected to perform for everyone around you when you're facing these challenges and barriers on a regular basis? This is the flow chart. So 5 patterns of farm women's experience. We could talk about this probably for 5 days, but you can see those 5 differences that make a difference along the left-hand side there, starting with communication. And you kind of see how it breaks out. And interestingly, there's a pretty even distribution. So going right to the bottom, because I'm a big spoiler alert kind of person, but you know, you see the content are, you know, pretty satisfied with communication. Interestingly enough, less involved in the farm. Pretty good in terms of positive relationships and support. No real challenges or barriers, relationships, no real issues. We definitely found that this group tended to be an older generation of women. If we are going to go the demographic route, we did notice that. So comments around, you know, it wasn't so cool in my younger days, and I wish better for the next generation, but now I'm in my 70s and 80s, and things are okay. I'm as involved as I want to be. And then kind of moving from left to right, it goes kind of from satisfied to dissatisfied, and just quickly touching on inspired. It's not to say that, you know, there's no issues whatsoever, but it's, you know, I'm doing as much as I want to do, and you know, everything seems to be going really, really well, but I am still facing a few challenges, mostly on the external side. Constrained would be, you know, I'm pretty involved, I'm facing more challenges for sure, and there's a lot of external issues. So things like my relationship with other farmers, maybe equipment dealerships. We can give you the data. I'm not just saying that to be, you know, to be funny, but a lot of issues in terms of I want to do so much more on the farm, but I'm feeling constrained. Uncertain, that's where we kind of leap into I'm much less satisfied with the level of communication and my involvement in communication, especially when it comes to long-term planning. Less involved in the farm, but not by choice. And so a lot of that has to do with family issues where I want to show up, I want to be more, but my family doesn't maybe trust me, or I don't have positive relationships with my family that let me do the things that I know I'm capable of doing and grow in the ways I know I'm capable of growing. And then, of course, obstructed would be, still involved in the farm, not satisfied with communication in terms of level or type of communication, very difficult experiences, very significant challenges and barriers, and, kind of thinking this might be it for me. I don't think I can last very long. And so there's different strategies that you could use for those different dimensions. And again, it's a quick presentation today, but we're happy to go into details. And of course, our report goes into all the detail. Recommendations, just quickly, there's 30 of them. Bob was like, okay, I think we're done. And I'm like, there's 5 more recommendations I'd like to put in there. But so starting on the left-hand side, the idea of gender equity and equality. So having the same chances, having the same opportunities for sure. And some of that comes down to policy. I know when we were filling out our funding application, you check a box, like, are you part of the 50-30 challenge? What percentage of your board and staff are certain demographics, things like that, because we need to recognize the power of diversity and embrace those equity and equality policies and programming. Dedicated efforts beyond women in agriculture to focus exclusively on farm women. I know there's an amazing Advancing Women in Ag conference that took place earlier this week in Niagara. Been to the conference a number of times, but I was talking to a few women this morning and kind of said, like, yeah, there's a commonality between women, of course there is, but there's a uniqueness about farm women, and it requires perhaps different treatment and different conversations. And so being very cognizant of that women can't be painted with the same brush. Farm women are unique, much like farmers are very unique from other family business members, for example. Creating and enhancing programming, developing opportunities, resources. So, groups like the Canadian Ag HR Council, they have funding to provide daycare for those that are taking their training programs. That's pretty innovative, that's pretty new, that's pretty exciting. More things like that. Under the blue, promoting communication and interpersonal skills as an essential component of farm management. Of course, I would say promote business management as an essential component, but the communication and the interpersonal relations and the leadership effectiveness and all that wonderful stuff within there needs to happen. It's not just all about the numbers. Expanding existing research. So, we look at the Census of Agriculture and we see that, I probably have taken way too much time. We look at the Census of Agriculture, I saw a hand waving and I'm like, oh no, she's coming for me. But yeah, on the census, we're allowed to put 3 farm operators. Well, if 51% of women are identifying themselves as farmers and the rest aren't, are we capturing data appropriately through the census and other mechanisms, or do we need to look at that differently? And then conducting additional research, including, and this was interesting, our steering committee said, what would men have said? Can we do a comparable study on men? And we thought that would be cool, because again, we tend to focus on demographics and farmographics. Are you a dairy farmer or a poultry farmer? But looking at that human-centered approach from the man's point of view would be really, really cool. 2 shout-outs for thanks. Our steering committee was made up of women representing all the women in ag and farm women groups across Canada, so huge thanks to those ladies. And financial support from FCC, RBC, CASA, and WS. And I have to give a shout-out to Maurice and Bob because this research wouldn't have gotten off the ground without them. They took I'm just going to say it, Bob, they took a huge pay cut on this because we couldn't find enough industry dollars to make the research work. And they said, we don't care, we're going to do it anyways. So, thanks.
Well, thank you, Heather. Thanks for setting the stage for our next two speakers. And my apology, girls, I should have introduced you at the beginning. So for those of you that know me well, I don't like talking about myself, and I did test, this is like I'm trying to work about talking about myself, and I did, and I lost track of introducing my panel here, so anyhow. So we do have with us, I'll introduce you guys now, and then I'll ask you each to come up and present your program. So we have France de Montigny. So France is the executive director at Les Agricultrices du Québec, so the Quebec Farm Association, I guess you'd call it. I don't know how you translate that, but that translates as well, I think. And then we have Catherine Burns, who is Government and Stakeholder Relations Coordinator at the Canadian Federation of Agriculture. And both France and Catherine are going to present to us programs that their organizations have developed in relation to what Heather just spoke about, the farm research, about some of the needs that women have, and they've developed programs now to support women in agriculture. So we're going to start with France, and I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail on your bio, just so people can know a little bit more about you. So France, as I mentioned, is the executive director at la Fédération des Agricultrices du Québec. France has overseen the organization for over a decade, and she has created and implemented various programs to support women farmers in their entrepreneurial endeavors and facilitates access of their decision-making across different agriculture organizations. So France, the stage is yours.
Alors, bonjour tout le monde. Merci beaucoup d'être présent aujourd'hui. So, hello everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today. And thank you so much for the invitation to be part of this panel. And thank you, Darlene, for this introduction. So, yes, I've been working on different projects and issues related to the status of women in agriculture since 2013. And it's a subject that I'm really passionate about, and it's really close to my heart. So I can say that it's thanks to the Agricultrices du Québec that I embrace myself today as a feminist, and I'm saying this word today. So, okay. Surprise! Okay. So, Agricultrices du Québec was created in 1987, and we are the only agricultural organization in Quebec dedicated entirely to the women of this sector. Our federation is comprised of 10 regional unions of women farmers, which function as a lobby. So we're taking part of decisions influencing the agricultural sector as well as the feminine condition and representing the whole of women in agriculture in Quebec. All women and people identifying as women can also be a member of our organization, and we support. They can work directly or not within the agricultural or forestry industry to become a member of our organization. And we are supported by more than 4,000 women around Canada. And we are an affiliated group for l'Union des producteurs agricoles. Our mission is actually to offer women in the agricultural and forestry industry a network dedicated to the development of their full potential. The goal is to bring together professionals wishing to participate in the advancement of the agriculture and forest sector in Quebec. Our vision is to become the reference network for the success of women farmers and a sustainable agriculture. So to attain this vision and its missions, all projects and action directed by the organization are supported by three distinct pillars. So the first pillar is the pillar of promotion of the profession, the networking, and the organizational influence. The second one is access of diversity and union life by the way of our Perspective Plus program. And the last pillar is the entrepreneurship program by the way of the Dimension E program. So the objective of my presentation today is to share with you the different services that we have developed in the recent years by the Perspective Plus and the Dimension E program. Those programs have been created to increase women leadership in our sector. I want every woman farmer in Canada to feel more confident in their own capacity. I want them to talk about their ambition and realize all the power that they have. But before going into the detail of our program, I would like to come back to some point presented by Heather. So it has been several years that we have been analyzing the specific needs of women in agriculture in Quebec, and our organization has come to realize that many of the same findings and our recommendations, which are highlighted in the Farm Management Canada report, and it's the basis of our two programs that we have developed. So the main point is to support gender equity and equality initiative. And it's really important to create programs that specifically address the needs of women farmers. And we need more Bob, like I said to him this morning, because it's really important to conduct new research and expand existing research to capture new data on women farmers. So I think it's important that all of the stakeholders that works on the topic they proposed some specific program for women. They need to share what they do, and we need to work together much. So now it's time to present our two programs. So our first program is Perspective Plus. So we have created this program because the industry is very behind in terms of female representation on agricultural boards. We have realized that simply raising awareness or even providing tools does not lead to significant changes in the involvement of women on boards. So to address this, the Perspective Plus program, grounded in innovation, diversity, and performance, seeks to promote culture and inclusivity within agricultural boards. It is focusing its action on the emergence of innovative ideas, training, and personalized support for various organizations in our sector. So the specific objective of the program is to increase the number of women elected on boards in agricultural structures, and to act as an advisor on the issue of diversity in agricultural board, and to train and mentor women wishing to obtain elected office. Our program is currently funded by the Women and Gender Equality Canada, and it allowed us to offer consulting services to agricultural organizations in Quebec to help implement them systematic changes to be more inclusive. We also support and coach our 10 regional groups about procedures of board. Since the beginning of the program, we have been able to support more than 15 organizations and implement concrete systemic changes. For example, we established working tables on equity, diversity, and inclusion into a regional federation of l'Union des producteurs agricoles, and in one of the largest cooperative largest producers cooperative in Quebec, Solio Groupe Coopératif. And we also supported Quebec pork farmers in the development of an equity, diversity, and inclusion charter. And we also supported UPA Développement International, so it's International Development of l'Union des producteurs agricoles, to change their general regulations so that there's a minimum of 30% of women sit on their board. And we also raise our industry awareness by doing a podcast that we call Femmes de Terre, Femmes de Tête. So it's mean like women of art, women of mind. So we also have developed training workshops for the organization, like on the best practices to encourage women to become candidates on leadership in the face of organizational changes, and to create innovative practice in other environments. So we also create a small toolbox, like for genderless writing. We said EPICEN, I think it's term in English, but I'm not that sure, on government assessment, and we created different charter models. Finally, we have also free access to a political mentoring program. So our Perspective Plus program is currently available exclusively in Quebec, but we just submit a new project to WAGE to be able to adapt it and offer it to all agricultural organizations in Canada. So if it works, I hope that it's going to work, we can move forward as early as April 2024. Now there's a second program, so you have some sheets on your tables that describe our program. It's that we have developed the Dimension E program. It was following various consultations on the needs of our members that the dream of creating Dimension E came. And this dream was then realized in 2019 following the receipt of different fundings. Since it launched in 2020, we have directly supported more than 500 women farmers throughout our proposed activity. Today, thanks to the funding of ISAID, we can offer most of our services to all Canadian women farmers. So the Dimension E program offers tailor-made services to women entrepreneurs in our sector across Canada. It helps strengthen the potential of each farmer by equipping them and support them on their entrepreneurial efforts. Our program is intended for experienced women, agricultural successions, women who wanted to start a new business, wives of producers, whether or not they have shares in the farm. And all the people who identify as female can also join us and use our services. We are currently working to see the feasibility of exporting all of our activities to Ontario. If this is successful, the goal is to make the program accessible in each province after 2025, while being conscious of the provincial differences. So our first activity that we, it's a little bit small. Our first activity that we proposed, it's professional co-development, and all the women farmers across Canada can register. Professional co-development is a peer learning process that uses collective intelligence to address concrete issues experienced by the participant in the group. Some of our cohorts are in French, some are in English, and we wish to support up to 70 women farmers per year. So the next activity is we also offer individual mentorship program. So the partner who leads our program is l'Union des cultivateurs franco-ontariens, and the English version is offered by the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. So this program lasts 6 months, and it's totally free for all women Canadian farmers. All women farmers can also access to different lunch talk and conferences. As an example of a topic, last week FCC did a conference on women leadership. Our next lunch talk is on civil liability on the farm. And the English sessions will start in spring 2024, so stay tuned, because all of our program are in French and in English. Dimension E program also provided personalized coaching to our members in Quebec. This service will be open to Ontario women in agriculture in spring 2024. So our personalized coaching consists of assisting our members in their business project. Our goal is to refer them to the best resources within our extensive network of partners. The virtual coaching consists on 2 meetings of 30 minutes each. The first one is to understand the situation of our customer, and the second one is to provide her with a referral to support her with her specific needs. And now the service that is the most used by our Quebec members is the complementarity expert consultations. So our member can have access to 1 hour of free consultation with 6 different specialists. We decided to create this service because we realized that many women did not want to talk to a lawyer or a tax accountant before a situation gets bad. So we want them to easily access some specialists to prevent the problem or to ask questions before taking an important decision. So my team is currently working on the development of this service for women farmers in Ontario. We recently made a small survey to see what kind of expert consultations they expected to have. In December, we are going to create 3 focus groups with women farmers of this province to have a better understanding of their needs. So if there is any woman farmer from Ontario in the room, just come and see us if you want to participate to our focus group. And the last service, the last service we create is a series of 3 training programs dedicated to women farmers in Quebec, in inception, startup, or growth stage. It's a kind of an all-inclusive package with all the actual services that I just explained, plus 10 workshop sessions. The workshops will also be available à la carte to all women farmers in Canada. So if you want to learn more about our service, just pick the paper on the table or come and see us after the panel. Finally, our organization is in the process of developing an agricultural cluster of women entrepreneurs in Canada. Concretely, this cluster aims to develop pan-Canadian private and public partnerships linked to the agricultural and forestry ecosystem. It will become the benchmark for female agricultural entrepreneurship in Canada. The main objective of the cluster is to propel female agricultural entrepreneurship by offering more services and adapted to women farmers across Canada, and to contribute to the advancement of women in ag businesses and on boards. The cluster will bring 2 types of partners, namely the major financial partners who will ensure the sustainability and influence of the services. And I also have the distribution and consultation partners who will make possible to reach the clientele of women farmers to promote new services. So if you like to learn more about our cluster, just come and see. I'm with Véronique Guizier here, one of my vice presidents, and Geneviève on the back of the room. So if I can take just 1 more minute to share the last thing, I want you to give you my hope. So I don't know if I can say that, but I hope that all the women farmers continue to be ambitious. It is important to create specific programs for women farmers because they still have barriers. I think that all the stakeholders and all the women organizations in each province should work together and create a national women organization. It's by creating this kind of structure, I'm sure that women farmers will face this significant challenge and embrace opportunity. So thank you so much. I'm available to answer some questions now.
Thank you, France, and congratulations for doing that all in English, which I know is not your first language. It was very well done. Just to remind everybody, this is a panel discussion, so after Catherine does her presentation, there will be a Q&A session. So if you have any thoughts that come up as our panelists are sharing their programs, please jot them down, and I guess we'll pull them up on Slido after, or the mics will be available. So thanks. So and France, great initiatives. I didn't realize. I mean, we've been back and forth talking about some of the programs, and we've worked with you, and I know we partner with you, but it's great to see all what your team is doing to not only help women grow their businesses, but grow themselves. So I really think that's fabulous. Congratulations. Next up, we have Catherine Burns. Catherine is a government and stakeholder relations professional at the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, as I mentioned earlier. She's an advocate for farmers and producers on domestic and international policy issues. Policy issue of particular interest is equity, diversity, and inclusion, where she is a project manager of CFA's Engaging and Advancing Women in Agriculture project that she is going to talk to us about.
Hi everyone, I'll try to keep it a little bit short so that there's time for Q&A after. As Darlene has already introduced me, I'm Catherine Burns. I am so glad to participate in this panel today and hear from these incredible women that I share the stage with. So thank you so much for having me and giving us the opportunity to talk about CFA's Engaging and Advancing Women in Agriculture project. I am the Government and Stakeholder Relations Coordinator at CFA, and I am involved in a number of different policy files. If I had to pick a favorite, this is it. So I am the project lead for this project in particular. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, we are Canada's largest general farm organization. We represent more than 190,000 farmers and farm families. From coast to coast to coast. So we're a membership-based organization, and we're made up of the national commodity organizations and provincial associations, and one territory association in the Yukon. So that's great. CFA also aims to achieve a thriving and sustainable agriculture sector in Canada, which delivers real social and economic benefits across the country. The reality is that agriculture, farmers, you're critical to Canada as an industry and as a people, and ensuring women's involvement in the sector is also critical to the sustainability of the sector. So Heather, I heard you mention earlier a very interesting correlation. On farms, there is at least one farm where there is at least one farm operator that's a woman, the proportion of potential successors that are women or girls increases. And I think we all hear over and over again, we have labor issues in this sector. So I think, this points to the women's role in sustainability of the sector very clearly. The sector just cannot afford to continue to undervalue women's contributions on and off farms. So a bit of background on the project itself. First of all, gender diversity is important to the growth of the sector, so I think that the research we've heard about today has made that very clear. Industries with more diversity, they're proven to have better results, greater revenue, higher public trust, which I know is a big point for agriculture. They're more resilient, innovative, and adaptable. And they're able to attract and retain more employees and customers. And then the cherry on top of all of that, having more diversity is also just the right thing to do. Engaging and Advancing Women in Agriculture project stemmed from some work done in PEI, so at the PEI Federation of Agriculture. So they developed a strategic plan with a group of women in agriculture focusing on policies and programs to address the barriers to women's full participation in the sector. CFA, with the support of the Canadian Agricultural Partnership, Chicken Farmers of Canada, PEIFA, and then we worked with an excellent consultant, Winding Path Inc. We developed and piloted and documented a guide intended to help producer associations of all sizes to systemically address the underrepresentation of women in Canadian agriculture, to raise awareness of the barriers women face in the sector, address those barriers, and then raise awareness of the benefits of women's full participation, and also to support women to develop skills to take on greater leadership roles on their farm operations, or in the sector more generally, so joining boards of directors, for example. So we created Level the Field in Ag, which is a step-by-step guide to strengthen ag organizations and the sector. So I have a hard copy here, but it is available digitally. If anyone would like a copy, please let me know. I would love to send it to all of you if I could. So we created this guide as a resource, which will be available for free to ag organizations across the country. It is low or no cost to implement, so we do give, there's some activities that might have a natural cost associated with them. We give tips on how to have those things sponsored, for example. So it should be low or no cost to the organizations. And the guide itself has two parts. The first is organizational capacity building. So this part of the guide is intended to help your organization to make those systemic changes. So for example, how to ensure you are including women in your communications and outreach by expanding your networks. So we did hear today, how many women do not consider themselves to be farmers or don't represent themselves as farmers. They still work on farm, and how do you reach out to them? So we have tips in the guide on how to do that. Ensuring that you're recruiting women to your boards and doing so based on their skill sets. And I'll quickly note a little side story here, because an important part of our project was storytelling. Largely because storytelling is extremely impactful in demonstrating the barriers that women face. So I've heard multiple anecdotes during the course of this project about the differences between men and women who are approached for positions on boards, for example. Extremely qualified women who are asked to take on a role like that will ask a bunch of questions right off the bat. How much time will be expected of them, what exactly they'll be expected to contribute, and they'll decline the role if they don't feel they can fulfill 100% of the expectations of that role. So if they take a role on, they want to be 100% committed to it, whereas male colleagues perhaps would take the role on even if they're only able to come to 80% of the meetings, and they view that as a success, a successful board member, and honestly, so would we. So I guess that's just to highlight the difference in how you might approach women to join boards. Give realistic expectations of the role, what is actually required of them, because they will take you literally. So yeah, and focus on what skills they actually contribute to that role. So the second part of the guide is focused on skills and leadership training. This is a fully formed activity guide. So you can put this in the hands of anyone in your organization or community, and they can start a cohort group of women and lead them through these activities. So it was extremely important to us that there be as few barriers as possible to organizations who want to implement this. So there is a full agenda with activities for each of the 6 monthly cohort meetings. They're completely detailed in the guide, so there's no need for anyone to develop their own agenda for these. In fact, if organizations can't even spare a staff member to lead them, you can put the guide straight into the hands of women in the cohort that you've put together, and they can lead themselves through it as a group. And I always envision it a little bit like a book club, like maybe you get together once a month and you go through an activity from the guide. And so I think, yeah, there's room for it to fit any type of organization, any capacity level. There are a number of activities in there. So we included financial training and understanding, ownership and succession planning, mental load activities, gender-based analysis training. So those are just a few examples. But we also included a few suggestions for activities that you could include women from outside of the cohort in. So there's some pictures of the cohort from PEI. And you'll see on the left-hand side there, we had a really successful event in PEI with mechanical training. So one of the things that we found, or anecdotally we found, which is also backed up by FMC's research, is valuable skills training that women don't receive. So they had this event sponsored with Green Diamond, and they hosted a large group of women to come and learn how to do basic repairs on farm equipment. So yeah, it was very well attended, and actually even got some media attention, which was surprising. We didn't advertise it for that, so that was great. Another great session was a mentor panel. There's a photo up there somewhere of the mentor panel as well. Women from the community who are leaders in agriculture, they spoke and took questions from the cohort group. So this cohort group from the pilot actually wrapped up their formal work together in March of this year. And as you can imagine, it's pretty tough to measure impacts of these programs because as time goes on, I think the impacts will continue and continue and continue. However, we've heard several women in the cohort, they've already applied for positions on boards, they've joined boards in their regions, they act as a support system for one another. They ask for advice from one another, and it's only been a few months, so they've wrapped up in March and it's now November, so there's still so much time for improvement. They've all kept in touch, so it's really built a community there, which is exactly what we were hoping for as an outcome. You'll find in the guide some other really critical information. There are a number of programs out there for women in the sector, regional and national programs, and all of these programs really complement one another. So we've made an effort to list as many of these programs as we can, and we'll continue to update this list as time goes on. So of course, if there's anything that you're thinking of that should be included in our directory, that would be great. So Dimension E and Perspective Plus are already in there, of course. They're great programs. So yes, they're all very complementary, and perhaps your organization's looking for something else, or you're looking for individual training, and so we hope to be able to provide sort of a guide for that as well. So I want to be clear that we view this guide as a first step for organizations, and I truly believe that it's a numbers game. This is how we can reach as many women as possible in our view, make it barrier-free, cost-free as much as possible, and where there are more women, there's more ability to implement change. It's about critical mass. So this guide also fills a gap. There are no cost barriers. It's accessible for women in all regions and commodities, and organizations can do it themselves or give it to women to run themselves, because we recognize there's capacity and funding issues in organizations who want to implement women's training. It's an issue with every organization these days. So yeah, the next steps for this project, they're to formally launch the guide and promote it nationally. So it is not formally launched yet, but as I said, happy to share it right now. It will be in the next couple of weeks. And if you're interested in receiving a digital copy, please let me know. Otherwise, it will be available on our website shortly. We're also interested in hearing from organizations about what might help them to implement the program in their own regions. So any feedback on that is very welcome. We'd really like to reduce barriers as much as possible. So please, if you have any advice on that, that would be great. We'll also eventually explore whether a similar model can be used to address other diversity gaps in the sector. So I will leave it at that. I do want to make just a couple final points. First, the simple fact is that women are underrepresented in agriculture, and they experience barriers that men do not. As a result of that, women are forced to waste time, energy, resources dealing with those barriers. Wherever possible, I hope that your organizations are able to take this back and consider how you can support women in your community and in the sector. So thank you so much.
I'm going to stay seated to thank you, Catherine, but thank you for that. And it's great to see that you mentioned the complementarity of all of the different programs, and yours specifically, the fact that you're actually empowering organizations to empower women. I think that's really a great way to be able to accelerate that capacity of developing women and providing, you know, what's needed for them and their needs to become better managers on their farms, but also being more involved at the board levels too. So
Absolutely.
yeah, great for that. So it's time for the Q&A. So I do open up the room for any questions for either whether it be specific to Heather's FMC's great research, if you want to dive in a little bit deeper there, or to our different programs, or it could be just general questions about women and their farm women, and how we can have some good discussion around some of those barriers that all three of you mentioned. I do have a question, so if nobody is ready to ask a question yet, I do have one. And I think I mentioned to you that I was going to ask this, but because I think it's going to be probably a hard question, but what is in your minds, the biggest obstacle? Like, there's many, you've all named different obstacles, but what is the number one obstacle that women are facing?
I think the biggest obstacle might be, sometimes it's just perhaps that men don't see the barriers that women are experiencing, so it does make a challenge a little bit there. I think that the storytelling part really addresses that as well, and in our experience with the project, anytime that there was storytelling and once it kind of hit the men, the partners of the women on farm, what they were experiencing, immediately they jumped into like, oh, what can I do to help, or how can I help to fix that? So I think it's just a level of understanding to begin with, but that's my 2 cents into that question.
France?
Yeah, but maybe I'll go elsewhere. Somewhere else. So I know that women starts more new businesses because the farms are mostly transferred to men. So this is a big challenge for them to get access to the land. This is the first thing. It's pretty hard. And the second one is the profitability, because new businesses are less profitable than existing farms. So this might be a big challenge, because actually in schools there are a lot of young women that studies. So, but after that, are they going to take back the actual farm, or to start new businesses? So this, I think, it's going to be a big challenge for the next year.
Starting at a lower.
Yeah.
Coming in at a lower level.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I would agree with that, France, because I was referring to the Ag Canada survey, and for across all farms, 75% of potential successors were men or boys. They use both phrases, so I will too. So, looking at that, many women just don't even have the opportunity. They're not even considered as taking over the farm, and so starting a new farm. And then that's when we get into complications around, access to capital, when you don't have those assets and equity to bank on, literally. And I realize FCC are sitting on the panel, and you have programs to help with that, but I think it is a real concern, access to capital. Definitely, and I was thinking as well, we asked, at the end of our study, we asked an open-ended question, and we said, kind of like, if you could wave a magic wand and make one change, what would it be? And Bob and Maurice and I pored over those responses. It was open-ended. And the 2 things that stood out to me were, in one instance, it was, I know what I had to go through. Things are okay now. I got through them, and so I'm okay. But it breaks my heart to think that my daughter has to go through this, or my daughter-in-law has to go through this. And I barely made it through. I'm on the other side, so it is what it is for me right now. But it breaks my heart to know that these issues are still there for my daughter and daughter-in-law. And how can I help? And have I failed them because things aren't better? And then the other thing that stood out, and this kind of goes to what Elaine was talking about before, and I don't want this to be, an us versus them conversation by any means, But I'm thinking of your anger slide, Elaine, and one of the comments, well, not one of the comments, when you looked at the 1,025 open-ended responses and the women all gave responses to that magic wand question, I wish my husband wasn't so angry all the time, came over and over and over again, and how difficult it is to have meaningful conversations. And again, it kind of points to what we saw around that human-centered approach to the experience was the interpersonal relationships, and I think a huge part of that is spouses. The other thing I thought of as I was just talking, because I'm a multitasker and all that, was the domestic responsibilities. And I mean, it was said in jest, but there's always truth in joke. I wish I had a wife. I wish I had a wife to take over all the domestic responsibilities. Honestly, it was like there and there and there and there. So those were kind of the three things that came up most often was, how can we communicate the value of the work that we're doing that isn't considered work?
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let's make this mic hot.
I don't know why, is it working? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll answer one of your first questions. What's the biggest obstacle for me on the farm is the farm equipment. It's not meant for driving a tractor. There's a lot of obstacles, especially the seat. That's my only big obstacles. To answer about the women that say they'd like somebody to take care of the house, it's their fault. Go on strike. Don't do the laundry, don't do the cooking, do your own stuff, and then they'll find you. So there you go. Sorry, ladies. I have no. Okay. Second, third, I think skills pay bills, and you've got to show, and you've got to earn your stripes, and you got to show them what skills you have to bring on the farm, and you've got to take your own. You got to take your own destiny in your own hands. So what can you do on the farm? Okay, you could do the paperwork. That's fine. I can hire a secretary for that. You're just a pair of arms. What can you bring on the farm? Do you have your agronomy? Are you good in agronomy? Are you good in finance? Can you drive a tractor? But the work outside is very, very hard. And can you move? Can you work 90 hours a week when you need to be? So I'm sorry, but you've got to earn your stripes. You got to earn your right to speak. And that's what I think about. I don't see any obstacle. If you want to be part of the marketing, if you want to you do the booking of the corn, soybean, well, you've got to educate yourself on the markets. You got to register yourself on receiving all these emails, reading all the markets, deciding when to sell, when to buy. So skills pay bills. Do you want to be involved on the farm? Do your homework. So I'm sorry, but that's my experience, and that's what I had to do, and I loved the challenge. So I didn't see it as an obstacle. I saw it as a challenge. So that's my experience. There you go.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Interesting. It's an interesting perspective too. It's a mindset. So most CEOs in the sector are male, and when attending meetings, men outnumber women, including on panels. Well, that's wrong. Look at us. How do we get more women into more visible roles?
Invite them. There's a lot of very skilled and qualified women out there who can speak on your panels and can participate on your boards. Invite them and tell them why you're inviting them. I think that is, that's the first obstacle there. But they are out there, and sometimes it's a little work to seek it out, but they are happy to participate is what I would say.
Can I just add something to that? I think, Heather, you and I have had this conversation before, and I've had it with other women. I know I've been on many panels and moderating many panels, but from my experience, I've had calls from people to join a panel with the request of, we need a woman, we need some diversity on the stage, so would you like to join this panel? Like, really? And actually, we need bilingualism too. I'm like, oh, okay. So I tick 2 boxes, but am I smart? Am I interesting? Like, can I bring some skills? So it's really interesting. I feel sometimes we're ticking boxes when we're bringing women to the stage on panels, which is quite unfortunate. When you get requested for a panel in that way, that's really how it feels. So please don't, if that is the case, if that is your reality, please don't say it when you're calling on a woman to join the panel.
Highlight their skills.
Highlight their strengths and their ability to be a good speaker.
I heard a term recently. We had an event in September, and our counterparts in Europe said, we don't like to have manels. We want women on panels. So that was... So perhaps that's what they're referring to, yes.
And maybe the other thing that I can say on that is just don't be afraid to ask a woman twice, because most of the time a woman won't say yes at the first time. She needs to be confident. Yeah. So this is important.
I think that goes to what Catherine was saying as well, because we had a little kind of session to get to know each other before today, and talking about, you know, experiences with hiring men, women, performance reviews with men, women, you know, seeking directors for boards and things, and like Catherine took the words out of my mouth. I see that in every one of those instances is just. I don't know where it comes from, but there's just a fundamental difference, and I think if we can help, you know, kind of, obviously it's looking for the women and seeking the women and understanding the skills that they bring, but helping navigate that path a little bit, you know, because we do want to be clear on expectations, because I think a lot of women, at least speaking for myself, are so afraid to fail, are so afraid to disappoint someone that we can hesitate. And it doesn't mean that, you know, we're not confident or we don't think we can do it. We're just really thinking hard. Do I have the time to do what I think needs to be done to really fulfill this role? And not everyone thinks that way. And we see that time and time again. And I'll do a shout out to my staff too. When we do our performance reviews and we talk about compensation, the men come with a number. This is what I want. This is what I deserve. Da, 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 da. And the women, sorry ladies, it's, well, whatever you think. I don't know, whatever you think. And of course, it's up to me as a leader and being cognizant of that to make sure that, you know, everything is being done fair. But it's just, it's an interesting. I don't even want to say it's an interesting observation. It's an interesting phenomenon. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, just a quick question. Thank you for all the presentations. And it's not a subject that I was very knowledgeable about. So just starting from what you opened with, that quote from 1995, I'm just curious as to, like, in a more positive way, have you seen any improvements since 1995? And like, are we getting towards, with all that you're doing, are we gaining points in getting to that equality that we're aiming towards? Because I have my personal experience, and you know, everyone does, but I'm just wondering if in general it's growing.
So I think I'd have to say, I almost feel like I have to say we need more data on that, but I mean, typically the measure is, well, what's the percentage of women farm operators? And we say, oh, the numbers increased, so we're doing better. End of story. But I think it's a bigger conversation, and perhaps bigger than the conversation we're having here. I'd love to hear from the other women on the panel, and even Genevieve, like, you know, your experience. Do you think it is getting better? Because I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer that. I'm not a farm woman, of course. But yeah, I'd open it to others. But I think my response to that would be, you know, it depends how we're measuring. Is it better? In what way? What are our measurements, and or do they exist?
Yeah, it's the women situation as you're seeing it in the States with the laws removing abortion and all that. I'm always curious I'm like, are we going forward? Are we going backwards? And in this specific subject in women in agriculture, you would think we're going forward. I mean, in my line of work, we're more and more women, although I am on boards where we're 2 women out of 15 members, and especially because I'm younger or have tattoos, I stand out even more or whatever. But I never felt like I was not taken seriously, though, I have to say. So I'm just wondering how, in your research and in numbers, if there's gain. That's why I was asking. But then sorry, I just wanted to get back with the abortion thing, because I was like, yeah, I don't know if we're actually going forward.
Any thoughts on that, ladies? Or?
Well, one thing I could say, that I know that at the l'Union des producteurs agricoles, when our organization was created in 1987, there were 5% of women on boards, and actually it's around 12, 15. It depends on the organization, but so it's a slow progress. Yes.
I would point out as well, Canadian Federation, Farm Management Canada, we're national organizations who are focusing our resources on projects relating to women. So I think perhaps in that respect, it does show some progress there. So for what that's worth.
Yep. Okay, thank you. I can't see, there's nobody at that mic, I can't see the lights, but there's questions here. So there are a lot of identified training opportunities for women, and I assume men also need training to better support women. Wow, that's interesting. What training is most appropriate for males? Interesting question. Any ideas, ladies?
I'm going to volunteer France for this one, because something that we were talking about, so we were part of this a panel it was like a international event, but it was held in Brussels, and it was about women in agriculture and farm women. And something that got brought up was that Scotland had a program around unconscious bias for everyone. So just because we found, and even in their steering committee, we found that sometimes we're not even aware that there's challenges or barriers that we face, because we've been brought up in a society where that's the norm. We don't think to question it because we don't know what we don't know, as the saying goes. And so when we were talking about this afterwards, Geneviève, and that's when you were talking about your Perspective Plus. So I think that's kind of what you're trying to do, is saying, to have this unconscious bias training of, let's look at the biases and whatnot that we're bringing to the table, that others bring to the table, and try and unpack that a bit. So I'll give you the floor, France. I think you're doing that. But
yes, with our Perspective Plus program, this is what we try to do, because it's a lack of education. And sometimes it's quite funny, because we're in front of boards members, almost only men. And we're saying, like, okay, what's your perception about this and this? And they are shy, and they don't know what to say. They're uncomfortable. And with the education after that, I say, maybe that I said these things once, and that was not the good thing to say. So it's small steps, and our program, that's what we're trying to do. It's to educate the man and the woman, because some women just they are their own barrier, because they don't have the guts to do the first step. But so it's in the both way.
Sort of to the comment of the lady here, the obstacles sometimes ourselves as women, right? So so we have 2 comments, but did they go away? One went away. We had one comment of a lady that came from France, and she began a farm project with her husband, and she was alone, and les Agricultrices du Québec helped her gain a network, so she is now very involved. So thank you for that, Véronique. Nice comment. And there was another one, but I think it went away. Is it there? It was something about, patriarchy. and not seeing women as farm operators is a very limiting belief. Thanks, that's Elaine that said that, but she's gone. I see she's not there. Oh, and we have someone at the mic, so yeah, before getting into the other questions, go ahead.
Yes, so I just have a question for clarification. So, merci France pour l'explication des programmes. I thought the two programs, the Dimension E and the Perspective Plus, were really interesting. I just wanted to clarify. So I think you'd mentioned that you had submit an application or something to WAGE, so the Women and Gender Equality Department, the federal department, and I saw that some of your programs were going to be available in Ontario as of spring 2024. But I just wanted to clarify, so will those programs be available in other provinces as well, or is it something where you're looking to explore partnerships with other provincial kind of women in ag organizations to roll those out?
For the Perspective Plus program, like we're waiting if we get the funding or not. It's sure that if we want to expand our program across Canada, we'll need to work with other organizations. But the main goal is we already have the experience and the resources in Quebec. We have a great opportunity because we are one of the only women organization in agriculture. We are 14 employees actually, so we have resources, and that's why we wanted to expand our programs across Canada, just not to restart from the scratch everywhere else, but we need to adjust or adapt some of our programs. So yes, we're going to have to need some partners in other provinces. So I'm all there. And for Dimension E, it's the same thing. So we're trying to just see if it's possible to export our program in Ontario first, and if it works well, then we're gonna, if we have funding, we're gonna go across Canada. Yes.
Merci.
This is the main. This is the.
It'd be great to replicate it throughout the country and have offer all women the same experience. And that sort of brings us, and I'm going to make this our last question. In your view, ladies, is there any geographical differences in challenges faced by women in ag, either they be in the western part of the country, or the eastern part of the country?
I'm looking to Bob, and he's shaking his head, and I'm glad he's shaking his head because that was the one thing where we found in our research. We thought, okay, let's filter this data by production sector. Let's filter it by gross farm revenue, as we always do in agriculture. And when we did that, it didn't tell us anything. So no, there's no difference between west and east, at least from our data.
And commodity by commodity, it's all the same, whether you're livestock, grain, oilseeds, beef, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's the communication and the relationships with others that counts the most.
Great.
Yeah.
Good. Oh, yeah. Can I offer solutions? Sure. Do you want to take the mic? This is great. So what's next? I like this. Moving into solutions.
I love to talk about problems, but I prefer talking about solutions. So if women want to be more involved, here's a few examples of what you can do. When you're going to buy equipment, let's say a John Deere tractor, okay, when you go to John Deere dealership, poor John Deere, I'm going to roll him under the bus instead of my husband, but do you ask, because they always put the guy's name first, you got to ask, I want my name on the tractor this time, okay, so you got to push, you got to ask, otherwise you'll get, if you don't use it, you lose it. If you don't want that, you've got to push yourself out there. You got to sell yourself. You got to build your credit. But you've got to stand up. You got to roll up your sleeves. So that's one way. I worked for the bank 25 years, and I constantly saw these men wanting to put their name on the credit application first. They'd be building their credit bureau, but not the women. And when I'd say, okay, this time, guy, I'm putting your wife's name first. Oh, they'd be all offended. Oh, but I'm sure you don't mind, right? Because you're a very confident man. So you wouldn't get that, So there you go. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. Anyway, so Next thing, so women, what normally, as Heather knows, I normally throw my husband underneath the bus, but this time I'm going to actually give him a compliment. So last year, Michelle, or to our local co-op, right, when you go buy your grain, they thank God, if you know, you can identify a farmer by the clothes they wear, because it's all written Day Cab or Pioneer, right, or your hats. They clothe us. But normally they come and they give you gifts, and it's always a large or an extra large man. And then my husband said, I'm sick and tired of, I've got so many coats, you know, how about, you know, something for women, and that's smaller. And now our local co-op offers smaller sizes, and they do offer stuff for women. So anyway, so kudos to my husband. That's the only compliment you're going to get, honey. No. But again, and when it's true, things did change from when I met him. But my first sitting at the BDO as his wife, the accountant was talking directly to Michelle, my husband. He wasn't even talking to me. I had to put my face in front of Michelle. And then he turned red, and then he realized what you do. So ladies, you've got to push. So it's like my kids. Without if you don't, and I work for the bank, you come into my office, you want to give me, you're complaining about something, well then I want two possible solutions. You got to find your own solutions. So that's my message to you guys. All right, thank you.
Thank you for pumping us up there at the end. We needed that. That's great. So thank you very much, ladies. It's very, I appreciate this. It's been a great panel and a great day. And I think, Heather, I'm going to let you wrap up the rest of the day. And thanks.